So we're just coming under the Tinsley Viaduct, and apart from the noise of the very busy road, what you'll probably notice is that the path I'm walking on is very wide and very smooth because it's tarmacked. Now we're just approaching Rotherham. We're still are we in Sheffield? I think the border with Sheffield and Rotherham actually runs along one side of the Tinsley Viaduct. I think it might actually be this side, so I'm not 100% certain. But at some point about 15 years ago, some Tinsley people actually had this area, just the Tinsley bit, resurfaced. And it's good that they did, because this part of the canal, unlike the bit we've just been down, actually gets quite a lot of use. Both walkers and cyclists. You get people going from Meadowhall to Tinsley and all this area up here. And to an extent you'd actually expect this to be a bit busier, because this that we're walking on now is actually part of the Transpennine Trail. Where the Transpennine Trail ends, it ends, well, this part of the Transpennine Trail actually ends near the viaduct where we've just been, and then it goes off over a bridge around Meadowhall and then up various other paths. Sort of alongside and across some of the other roads, and some of it's open and some of it's shut, and some of it's tarmacked and some of it isn't, and some of it's good and some of it's bad. So, you know, it's nice and quiet, but it won't get you anywhere quickly. This bit here, between Meadowhall and Rotherham, is actually part of the Transpennine Trail, the whole canal path is. So that might be why this attracts a lot more foot traffic and a lot more bike traffic. And rubbish, of course. So we weren't quite at the bottom of Tinsley Flight. There's another one here and there's another one a bit further along. So we're not quite at the bottom of the slope. But I don't know who Tallulah is, but if Tallulah's watching, hello Tallulah. So there's a lot of space for bikes along here, and the markings actually make it look like they're going to resurface some of it, I wonder, or at least perhaps dig it up for some reason or another. So Name Game has branched out into telling us that all cats are beautiful, but far more important than any of that is this. This is the halfpenny bridge. It's looking a bit worse for wear now, but it was put in the early 2000s and it replaced an earlier bridge which was here previously. And the original bridge, I believe, was a toll bridge which cost half a penny, hence the term halfpenny bridge. It's strange to think about paying a toll for a bridge. We do still have toll bridges, especially ones that cars can use. Closest one I can think of is probably the Dunham Bridge. But it's hard to think really of paying a toll just to walk over or ride over. I wonder if people would actually pay. If we actually made this a toll bridge, do you think people would pay? I don't think they would. But this bridge is actually where the canal meets the river. That's the canal over there, that's the river, and they both join together here. So the bit we're going to walk along now is not a canal towpath in the conventional sense, it's more of a path along the river. But now we're out of Tinsley, you'll see we've still got a nice tarmac surface, and this was done just over 10 years ago by Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council. And it's starting to come up in places. I don't know if you can quite see it on the videos. It's starting to come up in places, but they actually tarmacked the whole thing from Tinsley all the way down to Don Street. And again, a lot of this was just like mud tracks like we've seen already. And it's been so much more useful for cycles and for walkers ever since they tarmacked it. So this really is all Sheffield Council and possibly the Canal and River Trust needs to do. Now, I don't think this bit that we've just been up is actually as popular as it once was, and you can see that because of all the overgrown vegetation. You can see it's all nice and clear just here, and I think the reason for that is that we've got this huge road bridge. This was part of the bus rapid transit scheme, although it's not just for buses. In fact, our X1 and X2 bus don't even use it anymore. They've rerouted the X3 bus to use this one. And that basically bypasses the roundabout at Tinsley and lets you get straight to the Meadowhall ring road. And as we come a bit further down here, you'll see there's actually a path from the canal path right to the other end of that road. When they built the new link road and the bridge, someone actually decided to build a path, and here it is. But for some reason, for several years, quite a few years in fact, it was locked off with these gates and no one knew why. There's a perfectly good path there to the other end and it was all locked off. And finally, a couple of years ago, there was a sign put up saying cycle and footpath to Meadowhall now open by common sense. And I think that says a lot. All you need with these sorts of things is a little bit of common sense. So let's head down to Rotherham. Haven't we already mentioned Donkey Dave? Well, it's 2025 now, so I wonder if Joe and Scott are still together. Now this path is actually wider than it looks. You can see here where it's got a bit overgrown and someone's tried to make a start on cutting it back. And someone's actually had a fire just here. But despite the path being deceptively small, at least just here there's actually quite a lot of room where you could extend it, because there's just absolutely nothing here other than dead ferns. So you could quite easily dig some of this out and extend it to double the width and have as many cyclists as you want. You see, I'm having to watch out for cyclists already. We've barely got any in Sheffield. Yeah, and here's another bit where the tree roots are pushing the surface up, but it's not too bad just here, is it? Now sometimes you've got to watch out just here because there's some of these trees have fallen over. It was a bit blocked at one time for a little while, but they've cut down the dead trees now. So here's the weir, there's where the river carries on, and just the other side of this tree is where the canal carries on. And here we are back at the canal. Name Game does like his publicity. Now the main problem that we see with using routes like this as cycle paths is that they often get shut for various reasons. And the bit we've just come along was shut for quite some time while they built that bus rapid transit bridge, and the halfpenny bridge I think was shut for a while for something. Other bits of it have been shut, and further down it was shut when they were building the tram train, and they've been doing some flood remediation works. It was shut for quite a long time, probably upwards of a year for that. And if that, obviously some of that's unavoidable, but if that was any other road, it just wouldn't be considered acceptable. They'd have to have periods of it open, or they'd have to make alternative arrangements, and really the main alternative arrangement was just go up the main road. And I never knew from one month to the next, or even 1 week to the next, if this is going to be open. We've got this really lovely surface, and it's a really nice peaceful route to take, and I just never knew from 1 week to the next if it's going to be open. So if you're concerned about that, you just think, why bother? Just go straight along the main road and get used to the traffic. Now we've got two bits of water here. We've got the canal and we've got whatever this is. I don't know what this is or why it exists. I've often wondered if it might be some sort of moat to keep people out of that area that's covered up by the Heras fencing, because that's some sort of farm over there. But I don't know whose it is. And then the other side you've got the railway. Now it seems pretty quiet here today, but when I came here yesterday, it might have actually been a bit later during rush hour when I was here, there are actually quite a lot of pedestrians and quite a lot of cycles. In fact, sometimes, especially on a Saturday morning, you do get quite a large number of cycles using this. And you can probably tell why. Again, I don't know if it's coming across on video very well, but there's a few bits of the path coming up just here, but it's really only a little bit and it wouldn't take too much effort to repair it. Do you think we're being counted? So at some point this area has been brightened up with some art on the wall. Again, I'm not sure who did this. Some of it was there's quite a few bits of this sort of art all along here. Some of it was done by Rotherham Ethnic Minority Alliances for their Love is Louder project. I'm not sure if this is part of that. Unfortunately it has been damaged by graffiti. So one of the few bits that you've got to watch out for in this area is this little bit here, which is full of gravel, and this bridge here, which has tracks on it. Now, I don't know a lot about the history of this area, and Rotherham did have trams, so I did wonder if these might have been tram tracks. So I've been assured by people who are much older than me that they're not tram tracks. So I think they were actually part of the industry that was relevant in the area at the time. I think they're just leftovers from some sort of train that would be used to get things from one side of the canal to the other, because we do still have some bits of industry left here. And if we go just past there, that takes you into the Blackburn Meadows Nature Reserve. Now, when they were doing the flood alleviation a couple of years ago, this bit here was shut for ages. It must have been shut for a good year. And about just here where I'm stood, or just at the bottom of the slope, there was a huge thing of concrete blocks. I mean, you think you'd had enough of concrete blocks in Sheffield. Well, just here in front of us there was a huge wall of them. But if you were creative, you could sort of just walk around here on the grass and walk around them. But that meant that this path here was actually unused for quite a long time. And you'll see it's had a lot of overgrowth on it, and the hedges are really in need of cutting. And you can see just here, turn that up a bit, you see just here the path is actually deceptively small. The path actually comes up to probably here, if not a bit further. But all you actually see is this narrow bit here. So that's what happens when you don't have any real maintenance. Everything gets overgrown and then it becomes difficult to use. Not really the weather for it, I don't think, at the moment, although maybe last week. Now, I don't know what this big arch is for. We've got obviously a wall, and someone's gone to the effort of building a big arch here with a big hole in it, which at some point has been filled up, and that's as bright as I can make it. But it has obviously been used for a fire at some point in the last few years. In fact, what have we got there? We've got a telephone, we've got a spare computer mouse. Yeah, it looks like there's been some electronics on fire. In fact, it smells like there's been some electronics on fire, and I'm sure I remember seeing either a television set or computer or something here. I wonder what that is. Something electronic. Is that an answering machine or a radio or something? Oh, it's a clock radio. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to use that. So that's where all the concrete blocks come from. I was wondering why we have so many of them scattered all over the place. They come from here. So just as we're coming back into Rotherham, we've got some more artwork from Love Is Louder. But here is where there's a lot of moorings, so we've not seen any boats all the way along the canal from here to Sheffield, but you can at least have a mooring. If you don't like Tinsley or Sheffield, you can come here to Rotherham. Now this bit here is just a bit of a field with lots of overgrown grass and some old trees and some new trees, but I don't know what they intended to use it for. Now when this was actually shut a couple of years ago, you could actually sort of walk down here to get onto the canal, if you don't mind bypassing the concrete blocks at the end. But if we go along here, we can actually find out what it was and what it used to be, because we can see just up here, amongst all these dead bits of tree, there's an old sign. Now I was hoping it might be a bit more visible, but it's a bit overgrown. But you can see it's got the Templeborough logo, another regeneration initiative by Rotherham Borough Council. For further information, contact Department of Planning on Rotherham 0709 823 820. So this is obviously pre-1996 because it's got an 0709 phone number. If it was after 1996 it would be 01709. But just down here we've got some more information saying what it is and what it's for. It says reclaimed steel slag tip, enhanced by quality landscaping. Well, I'm not sure I'd particularly call that quality landscaping, but maybe back in the early 1990s it was good. Urban programme and derelict land grant, action for cities, and those are the people responsible, back when we actually put the names of the people responsible for things and the qualifications. We can see the Director of Planning has a Bachelor of Science, as does the Director of Engineering. You never know what people have nowadays. In fact, you often don't even know who's who in a place like a council. But what I will do is I will insert some photos which I took of this sign about 10 years ago when it was less overgrown, and you can actually see what it says. I think we're actually getting a little bit of blue sky coming through at long last. It's been a dull day all day today. I think that one's escaped. Now this bit here actually used to be a convenient little car park, so I don't know why they've blocked it off. Now I don't want to encourage people to use cars, but if this was used as a car park like it used to be, I don't know if it was an official car park or whether it was sort of unofficial, but I don't remember it ever having this amount of tipping on it. We've just come all the way from Tinsley and we've shown how the canal in the Rotherham side is so much better and so much more useful for cyclists and walkers compared to compared to the Sheffield side. And at the end of it, or almost the end of it, you've got all this tipping and people have had fires here and all sorts. So why don't they bring this back into use for something, even if it is just as a small car park? If a few people could park the cars here to go for a walk up the canal, it would bring this bit of land back into use and save it from being used for tipping and fires. Well, I tell a lie, there is one car there. Now you can't go up the road there, but if you look up in the distance, if you can see it, that's the power plant. It's a biomass power plant. I don't know where they get the biomass from. If it's anything like Drax, they'll probably import it from ancient rainforests in America. If you can hear me, it's a bit windy. I've no idea where the biomass comes from for that, but this whole area was re-tarmacked and done up. And I'll just show you the flood defence works and other improvements that they've done further down. And alongside it you can see is where the tram train runs. So this bit here was just one steep slope down the path, but they've put all this in to make it easier for cyclists and people in wheelchairs and probably mobility scooters and the like to get up. And this huge mass of concrete, which we can see with the lovely artwork on, was part of the flood alleviation scheme. So this is why it was shut for probably a year or so, finally opened in 2023. But Rotherham town centre is quite prone to flooding, and a lot of it, including the train station, flooded in 2007. I think the train station has actually flooded multiple times since then. But as well as artwork, we've got quite a satisfactorily wide path, all tarmacked. Right, I want to test my video camera's face detection. It's found it. So I'm heading up here towards the New York Stadium, but what you used to do, before they built all this, you used to go down there. I'm surprised they've not bothered taking this out. You can see where the fencing is just. That used to be a path, just someone in a noisy motor to go past right when I'm trying to talk. But you can see where that green gate is, hopefully. You used to have to turn to the right there and go around. And that was like actually like a bridge kind of thing, which was constructed on the side of the canal. And it was made of wood, and it got quite slippery in winter, but it did kind of do the job all right. Here's a much better view of it, if you can hear me. It goes along there. You can't quite see over the fence, but you might just be able to see if I zoom in. You can see where it used to go. It used to go all the way down there, and now we can actually come up a proper path past the side of the New York Stadium that's tarmac. So again, they put some effort into install that original path. In fact, if I just come over here and hold it over the fence, you can get a closer view of what it originally looked like. It was basically just tacked onto the wall, so it would have taken some effort to build that in the first place, but now of course they've gone one step further and put a proper tarmac path in not long after they built the New York Stadium. But the New York Stadium is one of the really positive aspects of modern Rotherham. How it compares to the old Millmoor, I don't know, and I don't know anything about football, and I really couldn't care less about football, so it doesn't matter to me. But it's close to the town centre. It hosts a lot of different things. It hosts various different football teams and sports groups, and they do a lot of other things there, and they've got community groups as well that use it, I think. So as far as I'm concerned, New York Stadium, a win for Rotherham. And just here is the end of that path which I was mentioning a bit earlier. It just goes around the corner, up the slope there, and then along there almost to the same level where we are now. So we've arrived at the old Guest & Crimes in Rotherham town centre, so we're about done, and that'll bring us to the end of the video. It's been a bit of a long video, and hopefully I'll try and cut it down as much as I can in editing, but hopefully it'll give you an idea of just the kind of things which we could do if we put some effort and some money in Sheffield, and it'll give you a big comparison between what the Sheffield canal path looks like and what the Rotherham canal path looks like, because they've really gone to some effort here to make it a lot more pedestrian friendly and a lot more cycle friendly, and I think Sheffield could do the same, especially with them spending so much money on the Dutch roundabout and cycle paths elsewhere. I definitely think we're being tracked.